Hello and welcome to another edition of the Philadelphia Eagles pregame show. I am Sam Heine, joined by Matt Brown again today. And Matt, the Eagles are going into Buffalo to take on the 11-4 Buffalo Bills. While this is not a very important game for the Eagles, it is a very big matchup. Two of the best teams in the NFL going at it, two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL going at it, and a matchup that a lot of people have been wanting to see in the Super Bowls the last couple of years that hasn't really happened. So going up to Buffalo, big game today. How are you feeling about this one?
I'm feeling good. I've already had a great football weekend. Went up to New York yesterday, watched a great Penn State victory in Yankee Stadium, and I'm ready for the Eagles to play a really good one today. Oh my goodness, this felt like at the beginning of the year when this game was announced. Week 17. When this was announced, it was like, oh my god, it's going to be the Eagles and Bills fighting for the one seed. Like whoever wins that game is going to be the one seed in their respective conference. And while that hasn't happened, obviously, this is still very big for not only the Eagles today but for the Bills. Bills are obviously fighting for the division. They're AFC East right now. The Eagles, man, I have been the one who have been saying for the last couple weeks, Eagles still need to be playing these games big time for seeding implications. Like they have a very realistic shot of still getting 2 seed in the NFC. The 1 seed is pretty much I don't even think it's possible now because of the matchups that the other teams have. I think it's almost mathematically impossible for them to get it. But in my opinion, I think it is very much possible for them to get the 2 seed, and that's the best possible number that they can get in these playoffs in case, because the Eagles wanted to do everything possible in their power to not go on the road in the playoffs. And while getting the 1 seed obviously ensures that, the 2 seed is just as good when especially the 5 and 6 seeds in the NFC are just as good as probably the 1 seed, whoever that's going to end up being. So it is a really interesting thing over these next couple of weeks if the Eagles are going to keep playing. But the Eagles are playing today to win. They are playing their entire starting lineup, and I wanted to go out there and watch them win a very well-rounded victory like they have the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think Chicago being the late game today obviously means the Eagles have to play their starters today. And I think even if Chicago was playing at 1 o'clock, and we knew the result of that game, I still think that they should play their starters. I think giving the starters 2 weeks off would be too long. I think depending on what happens with this game today, if the 2 seed's no longer an option for this team, I think that they should definitely rest next week. But as long as that's still a possibility, you got to go and try and get it. I mean, last year you're the 2 seed and you had home field advantage throughout the whole playoffs. And, whoever's going to get the 1 seed this year, the NFC is so deep that anybody can get knocked off by anybody. So especially in these first round, second round, that kind of thing. So it's definitely a deep NFC playoffs. And I think definitely it's the right move to play all these guys today. And I also think, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but if you go out and you go into Buffalo and you win this game, it could definitely be a big confidence booster for this team. And somebody else who seems like they've been playing with a little bit of confidence these last couple of weeks is Jalen Hurts. The last game against Washington, he played pretty well, I thought, 22 of 30, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. He has really turned it around in these last 2 games since that horrible game in LA. How do you think he has turned the corner? Do you think he's put that game behind him? And it wasn't just that LA game; he was not playing well in a couple of those games prior to last week's game. Do you think he's turned a corner, or do you think they just played some bad defenses?
I think that definitely has helped playing defenses that just aren't great. But I truly do think Jalen Hurts has turned a corner. I think that anybody could see those 4 games coming off the bye. They were just not the same team. Like they were just overall just not the same team. And he was just not the same player, Jalen Hurts. He was making mistakes in the open field. He wasn't making the right reads that he needed to. I don't think he was using his legs at all, in my opinion, throughout any of those 4 games that he played bad, especially in that last game against the Chargers. And then his turnover problem showed up in that big game against LA. He has simplified it down, and I think the play calling has been outstanding the last couple of weeks compared to the couple weeks prior. It still hasn't been great. I have some issues, but I think it has been 10 times better than it has been all season long these last few weeks. Again, it sucks that it's against I almost said Oakland, the Vegas Raiders and the Washington Commanders, 2 defenses who are either just absolutely god-awful or have so many injuries and just aren't good overall as well. It just doesn't seem like, oh, why are we even celebrating this? Because it's just 2 terrible teams. And that's why, like you said earlier, this is a really big game, confidence booster for them. if they can beat a team like Buffalo, and Buffalo is a perennial Super Bowl favorite. I would say they're probably a top 5 favorite right now in Vegas, and I put them as one of the 5 teams if I had to pick to win the Super Bowl right now. I would think one of them would be Buffalo. So going on the road to Western New York and winning a cold, it's going to be a rainy one today. I think the weather's going to have some effect on this game overall. If they go in and they win that game today, that is a huge momentum builder towards heading into the next month, into January, into the playoffs. This team can really feel like they can upset anybody, and they can not even upset, they can beat anybody and get back to the Super Bowl, because this team still is really, really damn good. They have the talent. They've done it before last year. It's almost the same exact group from last year on offense, and the defense has honestly filled in the slots over these past 2 months and proved that they're still a great defense. So there's no reason why they can't get back to the Super Bowl with this current team that they have. They know what they can do. They've been here in the dance. They've done it before. And I really just think it's momentum and confidence is their issue right now. And if they can get going with that today against Buffalo, I really think that it could get going overall. And it really starts with Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts gets going today, has a solid afternoon, doesn't make mistakes, they do what makes Jalen comfortable, he can start being a better quarterback again and get him back in the postseason swing of things.
Yeah, I really like what Jalen has been doing these last couple games. I think going into LA, having that little bit of a mini bye, and the way the offense was really struggling, I think they kind of said to themselves, well, let's go out and let's just try all these things that we haven't been doing all year. And, let's try to throw the ball over the middle. Let's try, to run more under center. Let's try to do all this kind of stuff that maybe Jalen's not as comfortable with, but they know helps the offense in general. And then I think, it was pretty obvious that Jalen, had his worst game probably of his career. And I think the last 2 games, they've really just gone back to what works for this team. And, some people might think that this is a slight, and I don't mean it to be a slight, but I think what helps this team win and what's best for this team offensively is Jalen throwing the ball, around even to what they rush the ball. And, you look last game, obviously, 30 passing attempts, 22 completions. That's a really good completion percentage, 185 yards. They don't need Jalen, especially this time of year. I mean, during the regular season and, during the stretch run of games, you want your offense to be prolific. You want them to be a high-flying offense. And, now it's this time of the year, getting into the playoffs. You just need to win these games. And what works best for this team winning these games is Jalen throwing the ball 20 to 25 times, having a high completion percentage, and not turning the ball over. And that's exactly what he's done these last couple of games. I thought that late touchdown, or not late, but that touchdown to Dallas Goedert, that was while it wasn't exactly a great pass, it was a great play by him, and the ball still was put in a great spot for Dallas Goedert to go up and get it. He had some plays where he's trusting himself a little bit more, I think, throwing the ball over the middle, which I thought was good. A lot of people go and they look at, Next Gen Stats puts out the little dot chart of where all his throws are, and all the throws are basically within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. But if these guys are being put in the position to get yard after the catch, and they're moving the sticks, then it doesn't really matter. This time of year, like I said, playoffs, we just need Jalen to be who he is, take care of the football, make the plays when they need to be there. And I think also too, he's been running the ball a little bit more willingly. I think today that obviously could be something that could be huge for this team, and we all know in the playoffs and hope in the playoffs that he's gonna just kind of let loose on what he's been holding back in the run game. So I really like what he's been doing the last couple of weeks. I really like how the coaches have been coaching it the last couple of weeks, just kind of going back to what has worked for this team. And something else that worked for this team a lot last year that is working again is Saquon Barkley and this running game. In the last 3 games, Saquon has rushed for 332 yards and 3 touchdowns. In the last game against Washington, I thought he had his 2 best runs of the season. That one where Cam Jurgens just, I don't know what he was doing, but Saquon spins out of that guy in the backfield, turns it into a really long run, and then also his touchdown run where he just bulldozed guys to get into the end zone. It seems like, it kind of started in the Chargers game. Saquon had a really good game against the Chargers. I thought he had a decent game against the Raiders, and then obviously had a really good one again against the Commanders last week. Do you think this is running game is starting to turn a corner, or is this something that's going to start to come back down to earth here a little bit?
No, I honestly think they're moving in the right direction with the run game. And it kind of goes back to your point about Jalen Hurts and what he is doing on the field. He's keeping things short like that, and it's opening things up in the run game more. There's because they're spreading things more out on the outside and they're keeping the middle open, and it's giving Saquon more room to get an open space. The big thing, I have kind of felt this opinion over the last couple weeks, and I kind of felt it after the Chargers game when they lost. I remember watching after that game. I was writing my feature that night because I had the late night feature for that game, and I remember writing and just waiting for quotes, and I was listening to what Saquon was saying, and he was basically saying that he knows his team can be better, and he feels that he is on the verge of like breaking out a little bit. Like he was basically saying, I know I can be better, and I feel like it's coming. And he knew it with the line, and he knew it with Jalen, that he knew they were turning a corner, and it kind of has felt that way the last couple of weeks. And I kind of agree with you. I think last week was the best pure like running he has looked all season long. And I kind of built this opinion over these last couple of weeks that I think the late season just didn't do well for Saquon. They were resting him in the end of the season because they wanted to make sure he was healthy for the end of the year, for the whole playoffs. And I think playing in February took a really big toll on his body. Just he just went through a full season of 2,000 rushing yards, playing every snap. He had a career high in carries last season. He was having career high games in the playoffs. Like, it was a lot on his body last year, and a lot mentally, and just so much, pounding your head into the offensive line, into the defense in a season. So I think the beginning of the year, where the Eagles take the philosophy of not playing guys in the preseason, taking kind of the first month of the season to really get going as a unit. While they were still playing like decent at the beginning of the year, I think Saquon has finally hit his, middle of the year that he hit last year. Do you remember that Rams game where he just went off last year?
Mm-hmm.
And he just went from there. Like, that was when he was at his best the entire season from then on and through the playoffs, until the NFC Championship, when he had that big game against Washington, and the Super Bowl. They kind of game planned around him. There's nothing really he could do about that. But that was his best football from like week 10 until end of January. And it kind of feels like it's a little late this year, but he's finally hitting that, big mark on the season. It took until week 13, 14 for him to finally get going, but it feels like he's finally turned that corner. It feels like he is like fully healthy, and like, I'm trying to think of the word, like not like mobile, but just he is able to do things right now as a healthy running back that I don't think he would have been able to do in early September, and early October as well. Like, I think he is really finding his footing towards the season. They're obviously finding better things on run plays, and the offensive line is finally playing better. And I think that is just them as a unit finally just having momentum and building it over these last 2 weeks. And I really hope that they continue to do that today in Buffalo, because if they do it again today, then I'll have even more confidence that they can continue to run the ball well and continue to produce a good offense going forward into the playoffs. So I have really loved what Saquon has done these last couple of weeks. I think this offense runs through Saquon the best, and when he is at his best, I think this offense is at its best. And I think that just helps Jalen so much more, because it takes so much pressure off of his shoulders to, have to go out there and be the man every single down, every single snap, make perfect throws, and not miss. So I am just loving that right now. And I think the more and more, or the better and better the Saquon continues to play, the better and better this team can continue to be.
Yeah, I think what you said there is true. I think this team is at its best, obviously, when it's running the football well. Like I said earlier with Jalen, he's not a quarterback that you want throwing the football 40 times a game, 35 times a game. It just is what it is. Like, it is what it is. And his strength is when he can go 17 for 25 with a touchdown and, 50 rushing yards. And that's who he is as a quarterback. And that's also when he's at his best. But to be able to win like that, you also need the running game to really be producing. So I do think that this is definitely something that they can keep going. I like what the coaches have done in terms of trying to get Saquon on the outside a little bit more. I think last year you saw so many of his big runs come up the middle where he just, was able to break it after that, break a tackle and go, going off the guards. And the guards just aren't playing as well this year. Cam Jurgens, even though he made the Pro Bowl, I don't know how he made the Pro Bowl. He's had a horrible year. Landon Dickerson obviously has not been himself with injuries. And Tyler Steen, we know, is not the run blocker that Mekhi Becton was last year. So I think, it's hard when you have these guys who are big names and produced so well last year in the run game to not trust them and to not, go behind them. But I think they've kind of realized that these guys are just not producing as they were last year, and they're trying to do some more creative things, put them on the outside a little bit more. And I think that's where you're going to really see Saquon shine. And I thought that was a big change in the Chargers game. it's funny being at the game and getting, a little bit more of a bird's eye view. You can kind of see things a little bit better than on TV. And I thought that game was a change in how they ran the football, and I do like what they've done recently, and I do think also when Lane Johnson eventually gets back, having those jumbo packages in there again, where Fred can come on the field and be that extra, quote unquote tight end, because if we're being honest, Goddard and Calcaterra, I mean, Calcaterra is a terrible blocker, but even Goddard hasn't been as good as a blocker this season. So, I think it's something that's only going to get better. I am encouraged by what I've seen the last couple games. And like I said, with the last game, I think, and you said it too, I think Saquon just looked the most like himself last year. There is a lot of times when he's getting hit in the backfield, but also at the same time, he's not always making those guys miss, right? Like, it is like a catch-22 where, he is getting hit in the backfield a lot, but at the same time, he's not breaking those tackles. Where last week, he made a guy miss in the backfield, brought it out for a big run. So, yeah, I definitely think that it's something that they can continue to build on. It's something that they're going to need to be able to do anything in the playoffs. They're going to need Saquon in this running game. And, I also think that it's something that they can exploit with Tank Bigsby. Everyone loves Tank Bigsby. It seems like whenever he gets in there, he gets a 10-yard run or whatever. So I think the Eagles need to lean into that maybe a little bit more, give Saquon a little bit less carries and let Tank see what he can do. Every time he's in there, it seems like he produces. But so moving on from last week to today's game, this is a big game, not only for the standings and the seeding, even though that is kind of out of the Eagles' control. Obviously, the Eagles need to win today to still be alive for the 2 seed, but it's going to depend on what the Chicago Bears do tonight. But I think it's a really big game for the Eagles' confidence going into the playoffs. Obviously, the last couple weeks against really good teams, the Eagles struggled, obviously losing to Chicago and losing to the Chargers, while beating up on both Washington and the Raiders, who are going to both have top 10 picks this year. So I really think this is a big game for the confidence-wise, not only for the Eagles, but for the fans. I think going into this one, if the Eagles can go into Buffalo and win this game, I think everyone's going to feel really confident and then going into the playoffs. But, I do worry a little bit that if they go into Buffalo, they lose this game and, everyone kind of says, oh, well, when you're playing real teams recently, you haven't been playing that well. And then when you play teams that are going to have top 10 picks, you blow them out. So I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think that matters at all? Do you think, I think that, especially from a fan perspective, I mean, I know I'll be a lot more confident in them going into the playoffs if they beat Buffalo, but curious what you think.
No, I'm 100% in that boat. I'm just like you. Beating Buffalo would give so much confidence, and losing, it really just depends how you lose. Like if they're in this whole game and just a play or two doesn't go their way,
yeah,
I'll be okay about that. But like you said, this is a really big momentum shifter on the year. Like they gotta make people still believe that this team belongs. And this is a very tough opponent. Like I mentioned earlier on the show, I would pick on my hand right now. Buffalo is one of the 5 I'm putting that I would put good money on that they're playing for a Super Bowl, and a good chance they probably win the Super Bowl because they have Josh Allen, because they have James Cook. They have a pretty decent defensive line. The run game has been decent this year, or decent, really good this year. But that's going to get them into there, and they've been to more AFC championships than anybody except the Kansas City Chiefs over the last 6 years. So I get it. I totally understand that, and I totally understand what a loss would feel towards his fan base, because they take losses like they're the game 7 of the World Series losses. Like the world is falling if they ever lose a game. But in my opinion, like we said, this is not a must-win game. We don't control our own destiny for the 2 seed. We can win this game by 1,000,000 points, and it doesn't matter because things don't go their way, and they're still going to end up the 3 seed because that's just how it is. They didn't win games early in the season that they should have won, most notably the Bears game. That's the one that's really kicking them down right now. Like that's the game where you really wish you could probably have back. Even like the Denver game, I would say it's another win that you really wish you could have back on your schedule. So yeah, it's really annoying that you're in this spot right now. But I am in the boat that momentum can come from any team against any opponent at any time. Teams play their best football at the end of the year, and I just want them to continue to keep playing their best football right now, because we are 2 weeks away from the Eagles hosting a playoff game at the Link, whether it's against the Packers, the 7 seed, or one of the 3 NFC West team, whoever ends up falling into those 5 and 6 slots and whatever spot they end up in. So right now, they just need to keep the momentum going, continuing, like we've been saying all show, doing what makes them comfortable on offense, and just continuing playing great defense like they have been. And if they can continue to do that, and like I said, continue doing that today, play their own game, don't let the Bills control today's game, and just keep themselves in the game. That's what they really need to do today, and not let this game get out of hand early on, and then you're playing from behind. It kind of felt like that Bears game was the perfect example of like they were not playing their own game. They just were behind. It felt like the entire game. They were only down like 8 points at some, or like 6 points the entire game, but it felt like they were down
like 20. Yeah.
It really did. All game, it felt like they were down 3 touchdowns. You can't let that happen today. You got to stay in this game today and feel like that at any time. Jalen can go out there on the field and they can go down and score 6, or the defense could come out and they could force a 3 and out. That's just how they have to do it today. And if they can, I will increasingly get more confidence in this team.
Yeah, and I think last thing on this, there is still a chance they can be the 4 seed. Last time I checked, when I was watching the Panthers game earlier, it was 3-3 with Seattle. I don't know what the score
I think it's
is.
17-10.
Okay.
Fourth quarter. Yeah.
Okay. So they're losing still. If the Panthers can win that game and they win their last game of the season, and the Eagles lose their final 2, they're the 4 seed. So losing this game, depending on what the Panthers do, does give the possibility of having to play your starters next week, which obviously is not ideal. But we'll see what happens in that Panthers game. But yeah, I think for this team too, going into Buffalo and kind of and winning that game, or I agree with you too. I think it's see how the game plays out. It's going to be terrible weather up there. Yeah. The Bills never lose at home in December. So it's not going to be an easy task at all to go up and win this game. But I think if you can at least play with them and, show that you deserve to be there and all that kind of stuff, which is crazy to say because of the wins the Eagles have on their resume. I mean, Detroit, the Packers, the Rams, the Bucks, who are really good, playing really well at the time. The Eagles have beaten a lot of good teams, but, it's just recently against, just how they've been playing recently. It definitely would be a big confidence booster for everybody. So a new segment that we've added to the show this year is the trivia question. So I was kind of struggling trying to find a trivia question that coincided with the Bills and the Eagles. They don't have a lot of history with each other, and I feel like most of the history that they do is pretty well known. Like, for example, Jason Peters, Shady McCoy trade. So I thought about Shady McCoy, and then I thought about his time in Buffalo. So the trivia question today is, how many Pro Bowls did LaShawn McCoy make as a Buffalo Bill? A little bit of a tough one because obviously it is not his time at the Eagles. I would like everybody who's watching, if you could, leave a comment in the chat with your thoughts, with your answers. We'll see if anyone gets it right. Matt, we will double back to you later to see if you can get this right. I'm gonna be honest, this isn't the easiest one. Like I said, the Eagles and Bills don't have a lot of trivia questions, but I thought it'd be interesting if we could look back on what we missed out on. Thanks to Chip Kelly.
Oh, my God.
Shady McCoy. And speaking of Shady McCoy, this is actually a great segue because the Buffalo Bills have a great rushing attack. Currently, the Bills are the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL, behind running back James Cook and Josh Allen, who have combined for over 2,000 rushing yards this year, which is pretty crazy. With the bad weather that's forecasted today in Buffalo, like we mentioned earlier, freezing rain, some snow mixed in there, it's going to be disgusting. How important is it for the Eagles to stop this Bills rushing game? And also, how should the Eagles stop this Bills rushing game?
No, yeah, it's pretty crazy what James Cook and Josh Allen have been able to do this year. As a James Cook truther, I have been a James Cook truther for, what's this, 15, 24, 23, for 4 years now. Oh my God. I love James Cook so much. He's probably I think he might be my favorite player, not on the Eagles. I'm dead serious about that. Like, it was always Mahomes, like for the first couple of years of Mahomes. Then we played, I know. I was a big Mahomes guy until he beat us in the Super Bowl. And then after that, I was like, okay, this sucks. Like, I really can't root for him anymore. But I have been on James Cook for a long time, it feels like. I remember this year, I say this because I have him in fantasy this year, but I feel like I always have him in fantasy. I love watching him play. I think he's such a great runner, such a great player. Like, I think he is the modern day equivalent of the perfect running back that you would want to have. Can dominate power running and can even do a little bit of catching as well. Like, if you need him to. Great blocker as well. Just does everything that you want your running back, like your top tier running back, to do. So as a James Cook lover, it's going to suck to root against him today because I've rooted for him all year long. I've rooted for this guy so much, but he is a threat to be reckoned with. Like, he dominates runs. He dominates at the second level too. I think that's going to be a really big thing. You're asking me what is it they can do to win today. The second level is going to be a huge thing today, because if James Cook gets to the second level, that is when things are going to get scary for this rushing attack. Another thing too with Josh Allen. Josh Allen's RPOs are some of the best I've seen any quarterback in the NFL play. He is so good at making things work on RPOs, whether it's faking runs to Cook or whatever other running back he's back there, whether it's taking QB runs himself, or doing the little dink and dunk passes that he does. So being able to contain the run today on Allen and keeping so he can't do those RPOs and those little stunts today is a really big thing. And he is the best in the league. I think him and Mahomes are the two best at doing that in the league today. And if you can keep him from doing the running part of his RPO, then I think you're going to keep them in check today. Like we mentioned already, it's going to be a sloppy fest out there today. They're literally called for the worst weather on the day in Buffalo at 5:00, which is literally going to be the middle of this damn game, which is just great. Like, that's exact. I remember seeing it. I'm like, well, this is going to be a slop fest of just.
Yeah, of course it's the 425 game.
Yep. So it's going to be a nasty one out there. I think both these teams are going to try to dominate the run, but at the same time, I think they're going to mix in some other type of run-ish plays, whether that's, some reverses and things like that. We'll talk about the other weapons for Buffalo today. They really don't have many other great ones outside of Cook and Allen on offense. Like, everybody else is kind of like mediocre on the offensive support. But for the Eagles, I think that you need to value like the rushing game today. I think we talked about a guy earlier. I think Tank Bigsby should be a guy that isn't just getting like, third and long carries throughout the game. Work him in today, keep him and Saquon fresh today. He obviously has shown you that when he is in there, he does great things on the ground. I think he's averaging like 6 yards a carry this year. Like, it's actually ridiculous how good he's been when he's in. I know he's playing in crap time at end of games, and those are getting inflated on them stats, but he has shown you during games that he can put up a good product on the field. So keeping them fresh is really good. Valuing Jalen today as well, but stopping the rush game for Buffalo is going to be the number one thing. They're going to want to continue to dominate on the rush, because if they do, I think they're going to win today. If Buffalo goes out there and runs for 200 to 250 yards, I'd be very shocked if they don't win today's game. So if they can stop James Cook at the second level, stop those RPOs at Allen, I think that could be the really big key for the Eagles today.
Yeah, obviously the Bills' rushing game is the best part of their offense. You talked about it. They don't have a lot in the passing game, and I agree. I mean, James Cook is obviously awesome. Over 1,500 rushing yards this year. He can catch the ball as well. It's funny because he held out for a contract this offseason, and he got a big payday, $48 million, and he's shown the Buffalo Bills exactly why he's worth that money. And I think the biggest thing with him and Allen is just their touchdown numbers. Both of them have 12 touchdowns rushing. You mentioned Allen, and obviously the Eagles' defensive line, the middle of their defensive line, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter back today. Those guys are going to be a huge, huge part of this game. If Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter can be the players that we know they are and dominate this game, the Eagles are going to win. And I think it's that simple, because the Bills really can't do anything else on offense. But I think keeping an eye on Allen is obviously the biggest thing. It's funny because you said you love James Cook. I've been on the Josh Allen train ever since he was drafted. I was always a huge fan of his, and he's my favorite non-Eagle in the NFL. I feel gross that we're both love these Bills players, but he is just so dynamic with the ball in his hands. And when he gets in the red zone, I mean, he scores touchdowns with his legs, and he is not somebody who's afraid of taking contact. He will lower his shoulder. He will run you over to get into the end zone. And the Eagles are really going to have to keep an eye on him today. I think something that's going to be interesting, obviously, is Nakobe Dean being out of this game. Seeing how the Eagles use Jahad Campbell, obviously they're going to have somebody watching Josh Allen at all times, because if not, if you turn your back to him, he's going to take off and he's going to make you pay. It's definitely going to be the number one thing for the Eagles defense is to stop this Bills rushing attack, the two-headed monster they have with Allen and Cook. We talked about it a little bit. Their Bills passing game is just not very good. They have no weapons on the outside. Their leading receiver, Shakir, has just over 600 yards. The next leading receiver is Dalton Connect with just over 500 yards. They are just not a dynamic passing offense, but that also doesn't mean that Josh Allen can't beat you with his arm. We all know how talented Josh Allen is. In my opinion, he's the second best quarterback in the NFL. He can make any throw on the football field. And, he can beat you if the opportunity is there. But at the same time, they don't really have a ton of weapons on the outside. So, how do you think the Eagles are going to try to defend the Bills' passing game today? And do you think they'll be able to be successful at it?
No, 100%. It's a rough passing game because I think that's like the one. It kind of reminds me of. I wasn't really alive for this. I was young. I was like 3 or 4 years old. But my dad tells me about it, and I see some of these Eagle highlights. It kind of reminds me of early Eagles teams with McNabb, how they really didn't put any effort into receiving core. Like they just had once they got off Terrell Owens, like it was just like they threw the Freddie Mitchell's out there, and they just tried to dominate the run game with Brian Westbrook, and they just try to do everything possible to not give McNabb great receivers and just dominate with rushing and offensive line, and dominate with defense. And that was a big part of the reason why those teams were good, because they dominated with that. But it kind of feels like a little bit with that with Allen. Like Allen is so good that he really doesn't need like that much. To be successful. Like he can make almost anything work. It's like how the Chiefs have done it with Mahomes these last couple of years. Excuse me. Other than like Kelsey, like their top leading receivers were guys. Oh, excuse me again. Were just guys that were, taxi squad in and out. The McCole Hardmans and the Hollywood Browns. I'm trying to think of other guys. They finally got some rookies. Huge, like the Juju Smith-Schusters. They just kept, recycling the same like 4 guys in there the entire time. They finally got some young kids and Worthy and Racey Rice. They finally took them a while to realize, we need to draft some kids to get Mahomes some weapons. But it feels like that for Allen right now. They let Stephon Diggs walk in free agency. Or did they trade him to Houston? They traded him to Houston, but they got rid of Stephon Diggs. That was his go-to guy for the 4 years that he was there. And they really haven't brought in
Gabe Davis left as well.
Gabe Davis, another one that left. They thought Shakir would have been a really good pickup for them. They signed him to that big extension. I think it was either this past offseason, the one before, but he's on a big deal right now. They drafted Keon Coleman, a guy who's not playing again today, coach's decision. He has been a letdown for them. Josh Palmer, a guy that they signed in free agency, just has not been great. They really have not hit on the weapons. And they really hope. They used a first-round pick on Dalton Kincaid. And the other one, Dawson Knox. Tight ends just haven't been the dynamic ones that they really need. And Josh Allen can make anything work. He won an MVP last season with basically the same receiving core. So the fact that he was able to do that is really impressive, but he can only do so much. He can only play hero ball so much. Obviously, the running game is great, but when that gets dominated, it doesn't work out. And Allen has to use his legs and take hits that he really shouldn't be taking in meaningless games. And they're in a lot of close games. You look at last week, they were in a tough contest against Cleveland last week. Cleveland's defense was locking down a little bit of that run game, and because of it, their passing game just couldn't keep them in it, and Allen had to play hero ball again like he normally does. So keeping their receivers in check, and I think that's shouldn't be that big of a deal for the Eagles today. Quinion and Coop and Reed Blankenship has been playing a little bit better, and Marcus Epps. The defensive secondary has been playing really well for the Eagles right now. And if they can keep their top guys that they even have out there, Shakir and Palmer and Knox, the tight end, in check, then they're going to be forced to try new things and do different types of pass plays, short game, maybe checking it down, doing more screens to running backs. And if they can keep them contained, take a whole part of their playbook out of the game, that would be really big for the Eagles. And that starts with really taking the passing game away today.
Yeah, I was just looking at because I said Dalton Connect. He's obviously the Lakers player.
I didn't even notice.
He's the Lakers player. He went crazy in the NCAA tournament a couple years ago. I meant Dalton Kincaid, but I think something else that's going to be big for the Eagles defensively is 2 of the top leading receivers for the Bills, while they're not up there crazy in yards, is their 2 tight ends, Kincaid and Knox. So they do like to use their tight ends. Everyone knows tight ends are quarterback's best friends. They're the safety blankets. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Eagles kind of cover those 2 guys because, out of their 5 leading receivers, Keon Coleman's not playing today. So that means that there's 4 that are going to be active. 2 of them are tight ends, and then the other is James Cook. So they really only use Khalil Shakir in the passing game. It's a big dose of James Cook. It's a big dose of those tight ends. So it's going to be a little bit different from the Eagles. I assume we're going to see Coop against Kincaid. I would guess just because, you're going to have Quinion probably following Shakir, I guess. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how Vic wants to dial up that defense on the back end because like we said, you're not really scared that they're going to really beat you. that way. But, getting James Cook on the ground out of the backfield, because they use him as a passer, they use him as a runner, obviously. It's crazy. He has almost 300 yards receiving this year on top of his almost over 1,500 yards rushing. So he's getting very close to 2,000 all-purpose yards this year. But now we're going to turn it to the other side of the ball and the Bills' defense. The Bills currently have the third-ranked pass defense in the NFL, but the 29th ranked rush defense, allowing 5.4 yards per carry. Obviously, that is going to play right into the Eagles' strengths if they can keep on rushing the ball like they have the last couple of weeks. But even so, how would you like to see the Eagles' offense attack the Bills' defense today?
Even though that is true that their pass defense has been better, I still want them to pass the ball a little bit today. Not heavily and be the main focus, but I want them to take advantage of some of these matchups because I feel like they definitely can. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are dominant receivers on this team and dominant receivers in the NFL. And I don't really think there's a cornerback on this team that could cover A.J. Brown specifically. Christian Benford, isn't Tre'Davious White 34?
He's had injuries.
Yeah, he's 30. It's 34 is a stretch. He's 30 years old. A.J. Brown should be able to take advantage of these guys today. I even think Devontae Smith with his route running should be able to take advantage of these guys today. I don't think Dallas Goedert's another one too that I think none of the linebackers they really have could take advantage today. I think Jalen needs to do the passes that make him comfortable today, not try to force anything, and still use the run game because it's obviously going to be open today. The 29th in the league is just not great. That just shows that they're.
Yeah, I heard. I was watching the NFL show on ESPN, and the name of it is escaping me. But Rex Ryan was previewing this game, and he said that if the Bills' rush defense finishes with 5.4 yards per carry average, it'd be the 7th worst in NFL history.
That's insane.
So, that's his stat. I didn't check it, but that's his stat. He said it on ESPN, so I think it's pretty credible. But, that matches up with them being the 29th ranked rush defense. 5.4 yards per carry it's unreal.
No, yeah, it's god-awful. That just shows you how and why they have a ton of loss that they do. I remember the one game where that really stands out to me is when they lost to Miami by, I think it was 17, that final score was, middle of the season. Devon Achane was going off in that entire game. And rushing-wise, and that just shows you that they are just not a good rushing attack team.
And against the Patriots, Trevion Henderson, he had a really
another
good
one
game
too
against them as well, so yeah.
Yeah, it just shows you how they have inferior spots, and it's crazy because they sign guys like Joey Bosa to get after the quarterback, and to improve their front seven.
Yeah,
Daquan Jones has been a guy I know that's been hurt for them, but that's another defensive tackle who's been there majority of the season that they wish they could have back, and should be helping that unit. Greg Rousseau is another one too. They have guys up front. Matt Milano at linebacker, he's usually filling gaps and making most of them tackles. So they have the guys that can help this group out, and it's really shocking me that it's been that bad, but. Despite the passing game being as bad as it is, or it being as good as it is, and it's going to be hard for the Eagles to dominate that, I still want them to mix in a good mix today because it feels like they should be able to run all day. But if they can really dominate the pass as well, and Hurts can have 200 yards today, and AJ and Smitty can do what they do best, and Dallas can get his as well, then I really think they could do whatever they want on offense. And if they can do whatever they want on offense, then it'll be a really interesting way for the Eagles to win this game. And I really think in that case, they'll be dominating this game if they can dominate through the air. So while the rush obviously would be the easy thing, and they want to have good rushing attack today, keeping it in the air and making sure that they can do that is a really big thing as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think going up against the third-ranked passing defense in the NFL, obviously they've gotten those numbers because they've earned it, but I don't think it should scare the Eagles away from passing the football. Obviously the weather is going to be a huge factor in this game, and we all know Jalen has struggled passing the football in weather this year, obviously windy conditions. Last year, even against the Rams, he kind of struggled when it started to snow there, when, obviously everyone's going to struggle in the snow, but he doesn't have, I guess you could say, the top of the elite arm strength to kind of just pass the ball through the conditions like a guy like Stafford or even Allen can. And so I think while obviously that is all going to be a factor of why they should run the ball more, I don't want them to shy away from throwing the football, but I do think like I talked about earlier in the show, I think they've gone back to what has worked for them. Their bread and butter, Jalen, good, easy completions that allow guys to run after the catch, have a high completion percentage, 20, 25, 30 passes. Obviously today, I think it's going to be more in the 2025 with the weather. But yeah, I mean, defenses, they get those numbers with the pass defense, but that also could be because teams are just running the ball all over them because their rush defense is so bad that teams don't really need to pass it. Obviously, the Bills have gotten to a very good record of 11-4, but like we talked about earlier, they definitely have gotten
they've underperformed a lot this year.
Yeah,
they have played down to competition a lot this year.
I mean, last week against the Browns, that game was crazy close. Like, they're a team that can definitely be beat. But, I think even so, like we said earlier, the running game, especially with the conditions today, is going to have to be what leads them. And then the passing game should be secondary. But again, I don't think that they should just shy away completely from passing the football just because the Bills have good numbers against the pass. So, all right. So we are getting a little bit closer to game time here. So we're going to go on to the inactives for both teams. First, we'll start with the Buffalo Bills. Wide receiver Keon Coleman, we talked about that earlier, that he is inactive. Kicker Matt Prater, safety Jordan Poyer, defensive tackle Jordan Phillips, tackle Tylen Grable. This is interesting. I did not know this while we were talking about him, but tight end Dalton Kincaid is inactive. So that's obviously somebody who we talked about could be a big matchup nightmare for the Eagles. So look for Dawson Knox, obviously, to get a lot more targets for them. And defensive tackle Daquan Jones. Kincaid was originally listed as questionable, but he is gotten obviously ruled inactive, while Dawson Knox, their backup tight end, he was listed as questionable, but he will be active for this game. And the Bills elevated another tight end from their practice squad for this game. And for the Eagles, their inactives are cornerback Michael Carter. That's something we talked about pre-show before we got on and got live. I think that's an interesting one just because they have used him in some packages so far. Notably, they used him a lot in the Chargers game, and they've kind of been mixing him in, although obviously Dory Jackson's played a lot better, so Coop's been able to stay on the field a lot more and stay in his slot role a lot more and not have to move outside. But it's definitely interesting if, obviously there happen to be any injuries. Linebacker Nakobe Dean, we talked about that one earlier. Running back A.J. Dillon. Quarterback Sam Howell, designated as the third quarterback. Tackle Lane Johnson, and outside linebacker Josh Uche. Michael Carter's inactive is not injury related. It's a personal matter. So that's something interesting. Obviously hope everything's okay for him, but obviously it means that he would be fine going into the playoffs. And obviously Nakobe Dean is the other big one there, missing with the hamstring injury. But also somebody else that is not playing that we thought that was going to play this week is Lane Johnson. Last week on the day of the game, Adam Schefter reported that both Jalen Carter and Lane Johnson would play against the Buffalo Bills. Jalen Carter is back today, but Lane Johnson is not. Do you think that the Eagles are just holding Lane Johnson out for the playoffs, trying to be extra careful with him and not rush him back? Or do you think Lane Johnson has had a setback with his injury and we should be a little bit worried about him going into the playoffs?
No, I think if today was a must-win playoff game today, like regular season kind of playoff game atmosphere today, he would be playing. But they obviously are trying to, keep him healthy, and they need him the rest of the regular season and the playoffs as well. They need him for the postseason, need him to get to February and win, and because they will not win a Super Bowl, I think, without Lane. He is such a big part of this team that they've invested so much in him over these last couple of years that they have not been able to need, big time offensive linemen as a backup to replace Lane. It's kind of not been like, oh, Lane will be out there, he'll be good, we'll get the great start every single week from him. But it's becoming a concern more and more as he has gotten older and he has started to miss more games. All season long, I feel like he's been battling injuries. The Liz Frank has been the major one that he's been battling right now. He's had stingers, I feel like, in his neck all season long.
Yeah.
Like that's a big thing to come back from. Every single week, it feels like he is just coming out for multiple drives, and then eventually he'll get back in once he feels better. But yeah, it's a really tough situation right now with Lane because you want him out there, but at the same time, you want to make sure that he is healthy for February. So they're going to keep playing it by ear. I don't think he plays next week. I'd be very shocked if he does. If the Eagles somehow, I don't even think this is possible, that where if they win next week, they become the 2 seed. I think he would play, but I don't even think that's physically possible for them to do that going into their game. So I personally feel like if they're not going to know into next week, they're going to keep him out next week. They could get him maybe a drive or two if they really want to like him to feel out some game time, but I don't think that's the issue. I think he's going to be fine when he gets out there. I honestly think that if he's ready to go for the playoffs in 2 weeks, that'll be the time when he is ready to go. There'll be a playoff game for him to play, and he'll be starting back at right tackle like nothing has been lost. It'll be Lane Johnson of old, and I really just think they're trying to keep him healthy for as long as possible because I'm in the boat where I feel like this is the last season for Lane. I don't think he really wants to do this anymore on his body. He's won his 2 Super Bowls. He's done everything he needs to do in the NFL. So if he can make it through the rest of this year for them, give them the tackle play that they need in February at the Super Bowl and in January in the playoffs, that's what they're looking forward to. And right now, it's giving him time off to get healthy. And by doing that, it's just keeping him out of the playoffs. Or keeping him out until the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they're just being extra careful with him. There hasn't really been anything out there that says that he's re-injured anything or anything like that. Yeah. But I will say my antenna is definitely up. I'm definitely a little nervous just because it was reported that he was going to play in the Raiders game, and then it's reported he's going to play in the Bills game, and then now it's he's just being held out for the playoffs. Like, it's just a little bit weird. And I don't know, how many people have watched the Hard Knocks, but there was like a segment during Hard Knocks last week or not last week, 2 weeks ago, where Lane talked about how well his rehab was going and how he's, on track to play and all that kind of stuff. And then, I don't know, it's just weird, especially because Schefter said that he was going to play this week and Jalen Carter's playing, but he's not. And I don't know. I want to think, and I do think that they're just being careful with him, but I'd be lying if I said that I'm not like a little nervous that, there's something else going on that they just haven't, leaked out, because there have been, it is 2 weeks in a row where they said he was going to play and he just hasn't even practiced. He hasn't even touched the practice field. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on, but, hopefully he's fine and they're just being extra careful with him and they don't see a need to put him out there right away. And he'll be starting in 2 weeks, like you said. So next segment we're going to move to here. It's going to be the notable matchups for today's game. So I have 2 notable matchups that I have. I have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter versus the interior line of the Buffalo Bills. It's an obvious one, but I think, you saw Jordan Davis really have a coming out party last week against Washington. He's played really well this season. I thought he played great against the Chargers as well. It's definitely been his best season of his career. Honestly, I thought he deserved the Pro Bowl over Jalen Carter. And with getting Jalen Carter back, it should only make those 2 better. So, with the run game the way that it is for the Bills, I think it's going to be a really big matchup for them to dominate the inside of their line. And then the other one I have is Jalen Hunt / Nolan Smith against I'm blanking on his name right now. Deion Dawkins against Deion Dawkins. Deion Dawkins is a Pro Bowl left tackle. He's there. He's made the Pro Bowl again. Obviously, he's Temple made for all those Temple people out there. And he's one of the best left tackles in football. And, he's shown that by all the Pro Bowls he's made. It's going to be a big matchup against him, Jalen Hunt, Nolan Smith. Those are the guys that have been rotating on that right side of the Eagles' defensive line. Jalen Hunt, I think, has had a really good season, especially recently. Nolan Smith has had injuries. He hasn't really shown up a lot. He had the play against the Chargers, but I feel like Jalen Hunt has definitely kind of surpassed him, obviously, in the depth chart. So going up against a great tackle, I think it's really important that they can try to get the better of him if they can, because they're going to be rotating in and out. And like we talked about earlier, keeping Josh Allen in the pocket, even if they're not sacking him, but keeping him in the pocket and setting the edge is going to be such a huge part of this game. And I think that, it's going to be a really interesting one to see who wins that between Deion Dawkins and those Eagles edge rushers.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Those are those could dictate the game. I feel like those 2 that you just mentioned today. Like, you'll know how the game goes if certain matchups go certain ways for that.
And the Eagles' defensive line has been great. It's crazy because coming into the season, we didn't really think much.
I think that was their
about
biggest
them.
question mark.
Yeah, we lost so many guys, and obviously adding Jalen Phillips was a great move by Howie. I think even though his sack numbers haven't really been there, I still think he's been really impactful, and he's allowed some other guys to rotate in and out there. And the defensive line has really stepped up for this team, and I think development of Jalix Hunt, even the play of Brendan Graham recently, and the addition of Phillips has really been good for them, and obviously Jordan Davis up the middle. So, yeah, it's both my notable matchups are on the defensive line, but they've been playing so well. If they keep playing as well as they have, I think they could be a big reason why we could win this game.
No, yeah, really good. I have two as well. My first one, I kind of alluded to it better. It's A.J. Brown versus whoever they want to guard at corner one, whether it's Benford, Tre'Davious White, whoever. I really don't think that these guys are better than A.J. Brown. I don't. I flat out don't. I understand that rain is going to be an issue today, but I don't think it's going to hinder them from throwing the ball at all. I still think they're definitely going to be able to do it today. And I don't know how A.J. Brown is not going to dominate today. I really don't understand it. I think he's going to have a really good day, win a ton of his routes today, and make it so Jalen can dominate in the middle on the outside of the field. So that's my number one today, AJ versus whoever they want to call CB1. And then my other one, I think this is a big day for Zach Bond / maybe even Jihad too if they target him. But Zach Bond just versus Josh Allen. Like Zach Bond is going to be the reason if Josh Allen takes over today's game. I truly feel like Josh Allen is going to try to target Jihad a lot, but Bond needs to be the one to make the big moves and to make the right reads and to cover and to call out RPOs and call out runs when they're doing certain things. Like it's going to be, we put so much on to Bond, but I feel he's the captain of the defense for a reason. He makes the calls as the middle linebacker for the reason. They put the trust in him because he runs Vic Fangio's defense great. And I feel like a lot is on his shoulders today to limit the amount that Josh Allen can do. So if he can dominate today against Josh Allen, call out his plays, call out what he's doing overall, I truly think that is the big matchup today for the Eagles defense because they can stop that, stop his RPO BS, and make it so that the Eagles can keep the ball out of Allen's hands and not let him play hero ball all game long. I think that will dictate a Eagles win today. So a lot on Josh Bond, in my opinion, today.
Yeah, I think those are good ones as well. Bond. A couple weeks ago, I said he was going to be my standout star. I thought he was going to get a pick. He got a pick. One of my best calls of all time.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, and he I think he's had an underrated season just because of how well Nakobe played, and it's kind of expected from him now after being All-Pro last year. But he's been really good again, so it's definitely going to be a big matchup to look at for today's game. And then, so now going off of our notable matchups, I know a lot of us like to use some of our guys in our matchups as our standout stars. Our standout stars section is sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the most efficient way to buy your tickets. Each seat is given a green, red, or yellow dot, indicating whether purchasing that ticket would be a good, bad, or fair deal by using the code Philly Sports Report. Again, that is Philly Sports Report. You will save $20 off of your first SeatGeek order. Click the link in the description or in our bio. Matt, who is your SeatGeek standout star today?
So my standout star, number one, has to be Jalen Hurts. I think this is a big game for him. We talked about momentum today with Hurts and keeping the momentum. This is a really big matchup against a pretty good defense as well today. And I think that him playing well and standing out today would be the big reason why the Eagles win. Mm-hmm. Stopping Josh Allen is priority one. If they can do that, that'll be big. But on the offensive side today, I feel like if Jalen Hurts goes out there and has a Jalen Hurts as big game in a big time moment, like this is what Jalen Hurts does. He rises to the occasion, and he has big games. So if he can do that today, I would be really interested in that. And then my other standout star, it's A.J. Brown, man. I've been preaching it from the heavens, man. I truly don't know who's guarding AJ today. I think today is like the day where he has his big. I know he's had a couple in the last couple of weeks, and the Eagles haven't won the games where he really has had his big numbers. But this feels like an easy 7 for like 100 plus yard game and a touchdown today. I just don't know who really plays. I don't know who covers AJ well today. I think he has the height advantage almost everybody, unless they're double teaming him with a safety, unless Cole Bishop is coming over and double team whatever corner, or they're putting extra guys over there. I don't know how. Realistically, I'll say this: if they don't dominate the run with Saquon today, like unless Saquon has like 200 plus yards and is dominating on the ground, I don't know how AJ doesn't have a good game today. I really don't. I truly think that today is the day where he just has the best game of his season. Where it might not even be like the best stats, but you just go out there and go, wow, AJ Brown was just really like a difference maker in this game. So I have AJ Brown. I really think he stands out today and just propels the Eagles to a win, hopefully on offense.
I like those. Mine are going to be a little different. So I have my first one is Saquon Barkley. I think, if this is going to be a game of the Eagles win, I think it's going to be on the back of their running game, whether Bills defense, the way that they that they want to win and the way they win these big games is normally on the back of their defense. So I think Saquon definitely can have a big game today and, take advantage of a really weak Bills rushing game. And then also my other one is going to be Jordan Davis. He's been kind of the star of the defense all season, obviously besides the two cornerbacks who have been fantastic. But the Bills win the game by running the ball, and I think the biggest way to stop that is by Jordan Davis blowing up the middle of the field. I think if Jordan Davis has a really big game again today, I think that they could win. So I think if they are going to win, Jordan Davis is going to walk out of this game as one of the SeatGeek standout stars. So next, we are going to move on to our locks of the game. I just pulled up FanDuel here on my phone, and the line has actually moved since I put this into our little rundown sheet. So the Eagles are now 3-point underdogs in Buffalo. The over-under for the game is still at 44.5. So, just a reminder for everybody out there, normally the betting places, FanDuel, Vegas, whoever you want to use, normally give around 2.5 to 3 points for being the home team, and then the line kind of goes there. So this game is they basically think these two teams, if they played on a neutral field, would be even. So Matt, what do you like in the game betting wise, and what are some prop bets that you like as well?
So I really like Eagles and the points today. I was honestly saying I think moving that from 2.5 to 3.5 would be really good because I think if the Eagles lose today, I think it's by a field goal maybe.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't think it's much more than that. Like I really think they're gonna be in this game. So if you gave the Eagles 3.5, I really think you could get that backdoor cover, even if they were to lose on the game winning field goal, something like that. So I would really love in the down to 3.5, but I also really like Jalen Hurts to score a touchdown today, and I feel like the more I like it, the more I feel like it's not going to happen. I feel like he's going to have a nice little rush out from like eight yards out on a 1st and goal and kind of get a touchdown like that. I feel pretty confident that that's going to be open today. I don't think they're really going to contain Jalen as much as people are saying they will. I really like Saquon's over 103.5 rush receiving. I think he's going to be a big part of this offense today. They're going to force, I feel like, the ball to Saquon a lot today. And that's why I think that number feels really good because they're going to give him so many touches, whether it's carries or catches in the air. Like, I really think that he's going to be all over the place. They want to force him the ball today, I feel like, a little bit. And I hope that doesn't bite them in the butt a little bit, but forcing the ball to Saquon is going to give him the most touches. And I think his yards would be a good thing to go against today. I also really like Dallas Goedert over 3.5 catches. It feels like he is always getting around that number anyway with Jalen. Jalen always feels like he's the check down guy for him. Mm-hmm. And I really like AJ in his overs. Like he's projected around like 60-ish yards. Let's see exactly what it is right now. But I really like what they're putting around on him for today because I don't understand how he doesn't have a good game unless it's just a running all day type of thing for the Eagles. Because, AJ, he's put around 63 yards. That's what I'm looking at. 60.5 really right now. I would go over on that. I really think he's in the 60s today. I think he's catching about 5.5 to 6 balls. That's right around where his line is too. Yeah. I really like going over in that line as well. Even with the bad weather, I do think AJ will get his.
Yeah, I think with the Eagles being 3-point dogs, I would, personally stay away from that. I agree with you. I think that this is going to be a close game. It's going to be an ugly game with the weather. Mm-hmm. And, missed field goal here or there could kind of be the difference in the game. And, being 3-point dogs, I liked it a lot at 2.5. I don't like it at 3. It's funny because I think, like I said, I think this is a 3-point game. So I don't like it there. Over, under, I like the under in this game just a little bit. I don't, like I said, it's going to be a tough time moving the football. I think there could be some turnovers in this game. Just, I'm just scared of the weather. I think personally with, we've seen what weather games can be like. I know they said rain, freezing rain, and some mix of snow. Like The Bills are obviously built to play in that because they play in it just about every week. So I'm interested to see how the Eagles would do in that. And then prop bets. I think, it's kind of a safe bet, but Dallas Goedert, anytime touchdown. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. He's plus 250.
Not a bad bet.
He's also plus 1,400 for the first touchdown of the game. I mean, he is way down the list of guys to score a touchdown, even though he leads the receivers on the team in touchdowns. So I think that's somewhere where you can make some money today. And Saquon Barkley also anytime touchdown. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, but in these last 3 games, not only has he had over 332 yards, he also has 3 touchdowns. He's been getting in the end zone these last couple games. So if you think it's going to be a big rushing game for the Eagles, don't be surprised if Saquon gets in there. And all reliable when they get in the red zone, Dallas Goedert, don't be surprised if he gets in there as well. All right, so we're going to circle back now to the trivia question that was asked earlier in the show. Just a reminder for everybody, the trivia question was, Eagles Hall of Fame running back Shady McCoy was traded to the Buffalo Bills for Kiko Alonso. How many Pro Bowls did LaShawn McCoy make as a Bill? Matt, do you have your answer?
I know one is guaranteed, and he was only there for a few years. I would say it's no more than 3 years he was there. I remember he went to Tampa and Kansas City after that. I know one is guaranteed, but I feel like he was there again. I'm going to go 2.
Very close. Good logic, but he made 3 Pro Bowls with the Buffalo Bills in his first 3 years there. So his first 3 years with Buffalo, he made the Pro Bowl in those first 3 seasons, helping. They had a 17-year drought of a running back making the Pro Bowl until LaShawn McCoy came. Jeez. And he also surpassed 10,000 career rushing yards with the Bills. So it's a shame that didn't happen in Philadelphia. He obviously is the Eagles' all-time leading rusher. And Chip Kelly, just ruined everything.
I'll never forget. I remember where I was. I was sitting in my room with my brother. And I remember at that time I was just on Instagram. And I remember my brother Ryan. I was like, Ryan, we just traded LaShawn McCoy to the Bills. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, we just traded LaShawn McCoy to the Bills. And then it came out Kiko Alonso. And I'm like, wow, I hate this trade.
Yeah, it's funny because I was sitting in my room watching ESPN, like Sports Center or whatever, and it came across, it was breaking news. The Philadelphia Eagles are trading LaShawn McCoy to the Buffalo Bills for Kiko Alonso or whatever. And I went into my brother's room and I told him, and he was like, he thought I was like messing with him because it just didn't make any sense. It just did not make any sense. And then you try to go on and on your phone or whatever and do some research about Kiko Alonso and
you try to make it justified.
Who the hell is this guy? And
I remember
try to justify it. And then obviously the Eagles ended up signing DeMarco Murray, and it was just, he was horrible and it was just a disaster. And that was, I mean, I always loved Shady. I took, when I was younger, when I was in elementary school, I had the old Kelly Green jerseys that they brought back for like the 1960 championship, whatever. Shady McCoy jersey that I took my 5th grade school picture in. So forever, my 5th grade school picture is in that Shady jersey. I loved him so much. And I was devastated when they traded him. And yeah, I know he was too. Him and Deshaun always talk about how much they hate Chip, but
they do.
It is what it is now. At this point, it's been over 10 years. Crazy enough, it's been over 10 years that trade happened back in 2015. But alrighty, back to the current Eagles and the current Bills, as we are going to move on to our FOCO Fit Check. I really hope a lot of people got some gear from FOCO for Christmas. Hopefully Santa brought you some FOCO gear. But if not, and you got some gift cards, you got some money for Christmas, FOCO is a great place to go and get some Eagles gear. Real fans need the best gear. That's why FOCO makes legendary gear for the most legendary fans. Click on the link in the description to learn more. So I today am wearing actually a Christmas gift. I have this new Carhartt Eagles trucker.
Nice.
Very nice. And then I am wearing a white Super Bowl 52 Jason Kelce jersey. I try to wear a different jersey every week. I have a crazy collection of Eagles jerseys, and I don't know why the Eagles are wearing white today, so that's why I brought out the white jersey. But I think it was a big missed opportunity by the Eagles in the uniform department this week. Obviously, last Thursday, a couple days ago, was Christmas, so Merry Christmas to everybody out there who celebrated, who's watching. And the Buffalo Bills are staying on theme with Christmas by wearing their red jerseys this week. A lot of people out there thought that the Eagles should wear green or wear white and green. But the Eagles decided not to, and they're wearing white jerseys and black pants, just completely missing out on the opportunity to have a kind of a Christmas uniform game with the Bills wearing red, the Eagles wearing green, just dropping the ball on that one.
I will say that sounds like a colorblind nightmare, a green versus red match. I think I remember like back in the day when someone did that, they were like, I think the colorblind community was like, I can't even tell who's playing.
I didn't want green jerseys. I just wanted the white jerseys with the green pants.
It would look
they
cool.
went with the black pants, but they're going with the green helmet, not the black helmet. It's just bad missed
opportunity.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Missed opportunity. You should have worn the black pants last week instead of the green ones and worn the green ones this week. Just seems like they just decided it too early. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the Bills, I like the Bills wearing their red. I love the Bills red jerseys.
They are nice.
They're very cool. All right. It is that time. We are about 20 minutes till kickoff as we are ready for our game predictions. But since we have a little bit of extra time here, I'm going to throw something at Matt real quick. Jake Elliott has really struggled again this season. Last season, he really struggled. 2 years ago, I believe it was, or 3 years ago, he really struggled. 3 of the last 4 years, he has not been very good in the regular season. Obviously, missed some kicks last week. Missed, obviously, those. I believe he missed 3 last week, or 2 technically. 1 on the practice one. Excuse me, not the practice, the penalty one.
Yes.
Just a tough year for Jake Elliott again. You know, obviously the Eagles aren't going to do anything for the rest of the season. It's too late. They're not going to bring in another kicker. But is this something that you're worried about going into the playoffs? And, you know, is this an off-season discussion the Eagles are going to have that maybe they have to bring in a new kicker next year?
No, 100%. Like this is a big issue, I really think, with this team. I really thought last year was going to be the last year of Elliott, but then he had a really good postseason that kind of kept him on the team for this season. And I truly think this is it for Elliott. Like you mentioned, I don't think that, you know, they can really do anything at this point unless like an injury occurs, which maybe an injury occurs. I don't know, invitation, but I really don't know who they could bring in. Like, I feel like a lot of kickers right now, you really can't get the best. I mean, I know guys like Justin Tucker are out there in free agency. Is that really the best thing to bring him in and deal with his baggage right now? I really don't think so. Also, on top of that, I feel like he's worked out for a couple teams. He worked out for the Saints and I think another team too. And they went other directions as well. Like it kind of like, is he really even that great of an option? Like the teams like the Saints don't even think that he's really
he's not better than his baggage anymore. And that's the problem.
Like I would agree with that. I don't think it's worth bringing him in for whatever, you know, the baggage that he has right now. Because people were like, well, they did that with Michael Vick back in the day. And I'm like, guys, this is a whole different scenario. Like, I feel like this is a whole different thing. Like, you just don't want to deal with that right now. And while Elliott has been bad, you know, he turned around last year for the playoffs. I just hope that, you know, he can deal with whatever demons he's dealing with. It's funny enough, he even said it last week. They asked him, is it mental? And he's like, no, I wish it was mental because I would be able to fix that. Like, he kind of fixed it last year. He just doesn't feel like I guess he's not getting good kicks on the ball or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a kicking expert. It's like,
it's crazy because, you know, they've changed the long snappers so many times. You know,
that's another big
Rick
thing.
Lovato, you know, 2-time Super Bowl champ Rick Lovato, they got rid of last year. They've brought in a couple different long snappers this year. So it seems that they're making every excuse for Elliott. But, you know, I agree with you. Last year we saw the same thing. He kicked great in the playoffs. He's only missed one kick in the playoffs in his whole career. You know, and obviously he goes back all the way to the 2017 Eagles. You know, it's a shame in hindsight that we got rid of Dicker the kicker because he's like the most accurate kicker in NFL history. But it's an off-season problem. But it does worry me going into the playoffs. I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, like I said, he's only missed one kick in the playoffs in his career, which is great. But eventually, if he keeps missing all these kicks in the regular season, like it's hard, you can't not be worried about it going into the postseason. So, you know, I totally agree with you that they're not going to do anything this year. But it's a real conversation to have in the offseason because if you've brought in 3 different long snappers and whatever, and, you know, they've changed holders. That's why Braden Mann holds now, not backup quarterback. Like, they've done everything to try to help Jake Elliott out, and none of it has really seemed to work. So eventually you got to kind of point the finger at Jake and say, well, maybe you're just not as good as you used to be.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, it kind of stings that, like, man, we had Cameron Dicker just say, I know he had a bad game yesterday. disregard that yesterday.
Yeah.
Man, I can't believe we had Cam Dicker in this locker room like less than 4 years ago. You were like, man, he could be our kicker right now. I know Jake did amazing things for this team and has been the kicker for almost a decade now. But man, it's crazy that they had another guy who is considered a top 3 kicker in the league right now. So, it's a really tough conversation. Kickers, it feels like it's really hard to get really good ones in this league.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a tough conversation to have this offseason with Jake because he's been a part of this team through 3 Super Bowl appearances and 2 Super Bowl wins.
Yeah.
I'd argue he's the greatest kicker for this franchise. I think it's either him or David Akers all time. So it's a really tough nail to bite, but I don't think it's something you need to address right now because I think it's honestly too late, barring like him, hurting himself on a kickoff or on a field goal. Like it's something you're going to have to bite the bullet with the rest of this way. And you just hope he can solve whatever problems once you get to these next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Alrighty, 15 minutes till game time, so we are going to wrap up here, but we're not going to wrap it up without our last 2 segments, keys to the game and our predictions. So Matt, give me a key to the game and then give me your prediction for today's game.
I mentioned it earlier. I mentioned it with Zach Baun and my standout with him notable matchup against him versus Allen. Don't let Josh Allen play hero ball. I think that's number 1 and really the only thing the Eagles need to worry about today. Don't let him take over this game. Limit to what he can do on the field, kind of a la the way they handle Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Like, don't let Mahomes dictate how this game's going to go. You're the better team.
Yeah.
This Eagles team is better than the Bills. I want to put that out there on record. They are better than the Bills. Don't let Josh Allen. Josh Allen is the one thing that really keeps the Bills in this matchup, in my opinion, from being further than it needs to be. The Bills will win this game if Josh Allen dictates how this game is going to go. If you're going to let him play hero ball, let him have his big long drives and drive extenders with his legs, with his miracle passes to some of these to Knox and to James Cook and to Josh, like whoever you want to be, Shakir. Don't let him dictate that. Don't let him do what he likes to do. And if they can do that, the Eagles win. And my prediction for today, I have the Eagles winning. I have them winning 27-23. I have AJ scoring a touchdown. I got Jalen running one in. I think Saquon Barkley has another big run. I don't know if he finds the end of the day, but I think he has his big runs as well. I think the defense takes care of business when they need to. Against Allen I think a big sack day could be coming for this Eagles defense. I don't know by who, but I think they could get after Allen a couple times, like 4 to 5 times today. Could be really realistic. I have the Eagles winning 27-23, still alive for that number 2 seed in the NFC after today.
All right, I like it. My key to today's game, it's a key to every game, but I think it's ever more important today, is winning the turnover battle. We saw these last 2 games, Eagles were positive in the turnover battle, and they won both of them. We've seen them win the turnover battle so much, with Jalen Hurts as quarterback, and they come away victorious all the time. Jalen Hurts this year is 4th in turnover-worthy plays. Josh Allen is 6th. Josh Allen has had a reputation, there we go, of being somebody who turns the ball over a lot, but this year he is really taking care of the ball. Like I said, it's just 6th in turnover-worthy plays. So if you get an opportunity to get the ball out of his hands, a pick, a fumble with the weather conditions, you have to take advantage of it. And then the offense has to take advantage of turnovers if they get them. I think if you can go in there, if you can run the football, if you can play Eagles football, winning the turnover battle, it doesn't have to be a high-scoring game, but I think that is their way to win. However, I've been really struggling with this prediction all day long. I've been back and forth. I do think that this is one of those coin flip games, but something that keeps coming back to me is this stat that I read earlier in the week, and it's that the Bills since 2020 are 20-3 in the month of December. I also heard on the radio that they have not lost a home game in December since 2020. I don't know. I couldn't find that anywhere, so that's why I'm not 100% sure on that, but they are 20-3 in their since 2020 in games in December. So for that reason, I have the Bills unfortunately winning this game 27-24. I think they're going to have a game-winning field goal at the end. But I do think that it's going to be a game that we walk away from feeling really good about how the Eagles played. I think it's going to be a game that says to us that the Eagles are just right up there with as good of teams as there are in the NFL. And, going into Buffalo and losing on a game-winning field goal or, field goal towards the end of the game in December, in the rain, in the snow, whatever, is nothing to be ashamed of. You know,
No.
that is a game I think that a lot of people can come away very positively from, and I think can, like we talked about earlier, still give the fans a lot of confidence going into the playoffs because, I mean, you said it earlier, the Bills are one of probably the 5 teams that could win the Super Bowl this year. You know, the AFC obviously is a little bit weaker than the NFC, but you know, there might not be a better team in the NFC than there are the Buffalo Bills. So, you know, this is definitely somebody who could be playing for a Super Bowl. And if they do go up there and win, I think it'd be a massive win. And if they do go up there and, you know, unfortunately, like I think might happen, lose by just a few points, I think that is still, you know, a positive at some point result, because the result of today's game does not really matter. So, unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong. Obviously, I really hope I'm wrong, but you know, I still think either way that Eagles fans are going to come away from this game and still feel positively about the team's chances going into the playoffs. So that is going to,
real quick, I want to go. We do have a little bit of breaking news.
Okay.
Nothing crazy. The Carolina Panthers have lost.
Okay.
And so have the Tampa Bay Bucks. So next week will be for the NFC South. That game, that's significant for the Eagles. They have locked the Eagles into a top 3 seed in the NFC. So so what could that say? Probably for next week, maybe them not playing their starters, but they are now locked into a top 3 seed, guaranteed for the playoffs.
Yeah, that's good. That's definitely good to know. You know, obviously they're still alive for the 2 seed. They need Buffalo. They need Chicago to lose these next 2 games for that to happen. Obviously, we'll see what happens tonight. So the Eagles have to play today, going all out for that 2 seed. But you know, if Chicago wins tonight, I think you shut it down next week, and I'd be all for shutting it down next week, trying to get the guys healthy. Yeah. But that is good news that the Eagles are locked in to a top 3 seed, and you know, it gives us the chance to rest our guys next week, hopefully. 100%. Or honestly, hopefully we're still playing for the 2 seed. But
I would hope so.
We shall see. That will do it for us with the Philadelphia Eagles pregame show here on Philly Sports Reports. Check out our website after the game for a game recap by Matt and a post-game feature by me. Check out all the stuff throughout the week that we will have for you, Ben's observations on Monday, and all other content that we'll be putting out this week. We will see you next week for Commanders at Eagles. And go Birds.
Go Birds. Let's go.